readers and our audience to learn about your publication and to be able to read it online, what is the email address or the contact information that they should send to get the magazine?
Well, they could go visit the magazine at freshwatercleveland.com.
All one word?
All one word, freshwatercleveland.com. And then once you go to our homepage, you'll see where you can subscribe, and just click onto the button that says subscribe, fill out the very short questionnaire, which is really just your name. And then you'll be subscribed and receive in your inbox on Thursdays and Mondays our newsletter.
And it's completely free. There is no charge for this subscription.
That is absolutely correct. It is completely free. And if you also don't feel as if you want another email in your inbox, you can also follow us on social media. So we have a very active Facebook and Twitter accounts. Yes, and then also our Instagram is really gaining in popularity as well, especially since we have our photographer who
I still haven't done Instagram. I don't know how to do that yet. Yeah. Well, let me ask you, what inspired you to get involved with publishing? What's your background, or what made you decide that this was something in your career path that you wanted to follow?
Yeah, well, thanks for that question, Sue. So I've always been interested in publishing and actually in advertising. Just growing up, I was drawn more to the TV commercials than I was to the actual shows. I would say I was somewhat addicted to magazines, trying to subscribe to as many different publications as I could. So I just always had that natural curiosity about publishing and magazines and advertising. And I started my career in publishing. So right out of college, I landed a job at a publication called Ohio Business. It was a statewide business publication, and I worked there for about 7 years as a production director. And then I moved into radio, took a little break from publishing, but even when I was in radio, I started a magazine in radio. I worked for WMMS, and I started a publication called The Buzzard Bone.
Okay.
I know. It lasted about 9 months, but it was a new venture for a radio station. And then I ended up falling into my own company. I became an owner of a custom publishing company called Custom Publishing Group, and then switched the name to Wise Group. So for 11 years, I was running the show and producing our own publications. Most of them were membership-driven publications, but we did launch a couple of consumer magazines. So.
And is FreshWater your company, or does it belong to somebody else and you're the publisher of that entity?
Well, I would love to own FreshWater. I don't even know if I should say that, but it does belong to Issue Media Group, which is a company that's headquartered in Detroit, Michigan.
Now, publishing and writing are not that easy as a career path for people to do and have success and earn money. What advice do you think you would give somebody headed for college or just coming out of college about some advice about how to proceed? What do you suggest? How should they get involved?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Journalism is under the gun these days, unfortunately. And even more unfortunately, the journalism industry has lost more than 60% of their writers.
Word.
I know, it's shocking. So in Cleveland 20 years ago, the Plain Dealer had 340 unionized reporters. Today they have 33.
Okay.
And so this is just an example, and Cleveland's not unique. There's, almost every city has the same story of the newsroom shrinking. And where it's really hurt is in local publications. The Sun Press, which is our local newspaper. Again, in 2009, they had 22 publications covering the outer rings and the inner ring suburbs, and today they only have 11. So
And
that's
have they merged with the Plain Dealer? Does the
they're
Sunpress come out
owned.
through?
Yes, they're owned by the company that owns the Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com.
Okay.
It's called Advanced Star. So they own the Sun papers, the Sun newspapers, Cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer.
Would you recommend then for younger folk, those seeking a career path, would you recommend that they not necessarily pursue traditional paper publications, but go into internet type media of some sort to have more of a chance for success?
You know, I would. I think the print publications, the print newspapers have not been able to figure out a sustainable business model. And they're still struggling to do that. Even though some of the larger ones like the New York Times and the Washington Post, they have funding, and they've been able to really work at getting subscribers to pay for the publications. It still hasn't filled the gap of all the advertising that they've lost. But first of all, I would encourage people to go into journalism because we need journalists now, today, more than ever. We need people covering our local news on a regular basis, but it's incredibly valuable to learn how to also write for a digital publication.
At this point,
At
yes.
this point, I would steer people into the digital arena.
And have you thought about where you're going to go from here if you decide to either change your career or develop even more about FreshWater Cleveland? Have you thought about your own future?
Well, I'd love to have my future stay with FreshWater Cleveland. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to continue to grow. I would like to expand our coverage into the inner ring suburbs, especially on the east side, where there's really no coverage and could be considered a news desert. So my vision for FreshWater is just to build on what we have, bring in more content, also bring in some video, tell the stories through different platforms. And then even though I was just discouraging print, my dream of all dreams would be to have a magazine that would complement the digital version. So maybe it would be a quarterly or a biannual publication, but I'd love to just go into an office and see FreshWater in print, on a coffee table, especially since we have an amazing photographer. So,
well, that is a wonderful ambition to have, and we hope that whatever your dreams are along those lines and as others develop, that they come true. So we're going to thank you for stopping by and meeting us, and tell Karen Rice I'm so sorry that she didn't join us, because I would love to meet her in person as well. And I wish you tremendous success. I found FreshWater Cleveland just fascinating, just full of interesting stories and photos. And like you say, you're a photographer. And our second guest, another guest that we are having this evening, you just covered an important relative of his. I'll wait and we'll discuss that with him.
Okay, very good.
So we want to thank Tammy Wise for being our guest this evening. We want to also encourage you to go to freshwatercleveland.com so that you can follow the prompts to subscribe to the online publication. It's a beautiful piece of literature, and it's totally free, so there's no cost to you. Okay? Okay. So thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Sue. It was a delight being here, and I really appreciate you inviting us.
Well, you're more than welcome, darling, because that's what we're here for, is to promote the arts. And actually, we do a little more than that, businesses and community organizations which support the arts, because we got to do that, because I'm so glad you don't do politics and blood, guts, and gore.
I know. No, we tell stories like about you, so.
Bless your heart. Yes, which they did a beautiful job when we were awarded our Cuyahoga Arts and Culture grant for this past season. Stay tuned. We got more coming up, I think. I'm Sue Johnson, and as we always say, be sure to wake up and live with the arts every day.